Well, good morning, Manna Church. Pastor Nick here. I'm so excited because this week we are jumping into Mark chapter 5. We're going to look at the story of the demon-possessed man. There's a lot in this story, so let's go ahead and jump in. So it's Mark chapter 5. This is what it says. We're just going to go through the first 6 verses today, but it says this: They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. We're going to stop right there for today, but man, we're getting like the backstory of this demon-possessed man. And it's really just a snippet of his story, because what it tells us is that he's really been isolated away from the rest of the community. He's not with his friends or his family. He's been isolated because of his alternative lifestyle. He's out of his mind, he's deranged, he's naked, he's cut himself with stones, and he's living in a graveyard. I wonder what has led this man up to this point. That's something that the Bible doesn't tell us, but I can't help but wonder what has happened in this guy's life up to this point that has caused him to be tormented so much. In fact, I really wonder how much of his story is actually relevant to our story. Sure, this is a story about a man in the Bible, and it's a true story, but truthfully, I feel like there's more to this, because when you boil it all down, I get the sense that this man was living in iniquity. What is iniquity? Well, iniquity is any time we live life our own way, apart from God. It's almost as if we make ourselves God. We think we know best, and we live life our own way. I wonder how much of his life has led him to this place to where now he's completely living a godless life, and he's living this alternative lifestyle that has separated him from the rest of society. That's so interesting to me. And I wonder how many of us find ourselves in the same position. Oftentimes when we're living in iniquity, we don't recognize it at first because we think we're right. And oftentimes we don't even see the negative effects of it until we start getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and these life decisions start caving in on us, and we start to see the effects of us living life our own way as opposed to submitting ourselves to God. And oftentimes we can even see things like God's law or even man's law as the shackles, as the chains that try to bind us. And we're just trying to throw off restraint, throw off anything, any type of authority or anything that would try to govern us. And in that way, we can relate to this man's story. Sure, he's tormented by demons, and maybe that's not your experience, but maybe you've experienced torment in your own way, where you're realizing that things are falling apart. That often happens when we're living in iniquity. I want to read something real quick that Isaiah says in Isaiah chapter 65. He tells us, he's really speaking on behalf of the Lord, and this is what he tells us. He said, I spread out my hands all the day to a rebellious people who walk in the way that is not good, following their own devices. A people who provoke me to my face continually, sacrificing in gardens and making offerings on bricks, who sit in tombs, sounds like the demon-possessed man, who sit in tombs and spend the night in secret places, who eat pig's flesh and broth of tainted meat in their vessels, who say, keep to yourselves, do not come near me, for I am too holy for you. These are a smoke in my nostrils and a fire that burns all the day long. Really what he's saying here is that anytime we're living according to our own devices in iniquity, it's smoke in the nostrils of the Lord. So what about us? Are we currently in a position where we're finding ourselves living opposed to God's ways in the Bible? Maybe you know someone, or maybe that someone is you. I think the answer is found in the last passage that we read, verse 6, where it says, and when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. Listen, wherever we're at in life, may that be our response. No matter how far you feel like you are from Jesus, may it be our response to see him, run towards him, and fall down at our knees. That's the answer. May we run to Jesus. We're going to continue this story tomorrow, and we'll see you then.